Part 1. Introduction. The moment history fell silent.
Welcome to Chronicle Unlocked. There are moments in the stream of history that overturn all known rules, push the limits of logic, and echo in our minds with an eternal whisper. What really happened? These moments give birth to more questions than answers, creating an enigmatic void where truth and legend intertwine. Just like that misty December day in 1944, when the golden boy of music, Glenn Miller, vanished from the sky as if by a magician's hand. This is far beyond a simple disappearance. It's an enigma left behind by the symbol of an era, a mystery that even time itself cannot solve.
Part 2. A melody of hope in the darkness of war.
1944. The world was trying to breathe in the shadow of one of its darkest wars. European cities lay in ruins, and hopes were hanging by a thread. Siren wails, the drone of bombers, and fear had become part of daily life. In such an atmosphere, music was one of the rare things that nurtured the resilience of the human spirit and the joy of living. And undoubtedly, one of the most powerful voices of that music was American bandleader Glenn Miller. His unique melodies momentarily dispersed the gloom of war. Immortal pieces like In the Mood, Moonlight Serenade, and Chattanooga Choo Choo had enthroned themselves in the hearts of millions, becoming a haven for them in difficult times. Miller's music was not just about notes. It was also an expression of resilience, clinging to life, and longing for a brighter future. That's why his voice was like a whisper of hope that drowned out the noise of war, echoing on both sides of the Atlantic and reminding people they were not alone. Part 3. A musical genius in uniform. At the zenith of his fame and success, Glenn Miller, with patriotic fervor, made a decision that surprised many. He joined the U.S. Army. Leaving behind the comfort and applause offered by civilian life, he would now use his music for a much different, much more sublime purpose, to boost the shaken morale of soldiers at the front, to bring them a touch of home's warmth and the hope of peace. For him, this was not just a duty, but also a heartfelt obligation. With the rank of major, he became the head of the U.S. Army Air Force's band and quickly turned this orchestra into a legend associated with his name. With his orchestra, he toured military bases all over Europe, giving countless concerts. These concerts became a sanctuary, a therapy session for tired and worn-out soldiers, reminding them of their homes, loved ones, and the lives they left behind, instilling morale in them. Miller's notes served as a shield against the brutal reality of war.
Part 4. The Call of Destiny. The Journey to Paris.
As the ruthless cogs of war continued to turn, Allied forces were making significant progress in Europe. Paris had been liberated from the darkness of Nazi occupation, and this freedom was a great source of morale for both soldiers and civilians. It was during such a time that Glenn Miller and his magnificent orchestra were assigned to give an unforgettable Christmas concert to the Allied troops in this newly liberated city. This concert was to be a celebration of victory and hope. Miller, with his usual meticulousness, wanted to go to Paris a few days before his orchestra to personally oversee the concert preparations and ensure everything was perfect. For this purpose, on the morning of December 15, 1944, he took his place in a small, single-engine WWII Norseman aircraft scheduled to take off from the Royal Air Force Twinwood Farm Airfield in England. This journey was the beginning of a new mission for him, but fate had entirely different plans in store.
Part 5. That morning, amidst the fog.
That morning, the weather carried all the gloom of a typical English winter day. A dense, almost thick layer of fog covered everything. A freezing cold penetrated to the bones, and visibility was dangerously close to zero. Conditions were certainly not ideal for flying, even risky. The UC-64 WWII Norseman aircraft, carrying pilot John Morgan and Lieutenant Colonel Norman Bessel, who accompanied Miller on this perilous journey, took off towards Paris despite all these adverse conditions. However, this was not going to be an ordinary flight. Unfortunately, it was the final journey of a legend and the chilling first act of one of history's greatest mysteries. The sky was preparing to swallow not only clouds and fog that day, but also a great secret. As Miller and his companions proceeded over the English Channel, fate had already begun to weave its web. At that moment, no one could have predicted that this journey would have no return.
Part 6. Silence lost on the horizon line.
As the plane progressed over the English Channel on its designated route, all communication systems suddenly went silent. After the last routine contact with the tower, a deep, unsettling silence fell. No distress call was heard, no emergency signal was received, and not the slightest trace of the plane's wreckage could be found. Glenn Miller and the two individuals with him had vanished as if they were a ghost in the sky, leaving behind only a giant question mark. Hours passed, hopes faded. Hours turned into days, and days into weeks, but no news was received from them. The beloved of millions, the child prodigy of music, Glenn Miller, had seemingly vanished into thin air. The cold, dark, and unforgiving waters of the English Channel had swallowed not just a small plane that day, but also a legend living in the hearts of millions and the secrets it carried, perhaps never to be solved. The world was witnessing the fall of another star in the most mysterious way.
Part 7. The official scenario and the seeds of doubt.
The official statement, which came after days of intensive search efforts and deep uncertainty, was far from satisfying many curious minds and grieving hearts. According to the report, the plane had crashed due to suddenly deteriorating weather conditions while flying over the English Channel. It was stated that factors such as probable engine failure, pilot error, or icing on the plane's wings might have also played a role in this tragic accident. These were theoretically plausible scenarios. However, the idea that a worldwide celebrity like Glenn Miller, such a huge name, could disappear in such a simple and almost ordinary way was not easily accepted by many. Some gaps, inconsistencies, and unanswered questions in the official statement soon led to the germination of seeds of doubt and ignited the fuse of conspiracy theories. Was the truth perhaps much more complex and darker than what was described in the official report?
Part 8. The dark labyrinth of theories. Friendly fire.
Among the countless theories put forward regarding Glenn Miller's disappearance, one of the most debated and perhaps most tragic was that his plane might have fallen victim to friendly fire, according to this claim. At that time, Lancaster heavy bombers belonging to the British Royal Air Force, returning from missions, would jettison their unused excess bombs over a specific predetermined area in the English Channel to land safely at their bases. This was a standard procedure. What if Miller's small and vulnerable WWII Norseman aircraft was passing through that deadly, prohibited bombing zone at that precise, fatal moment? Some eyewitness testimonies, diaries of former soldiers, and even some unofficial reports that emerged years later offered clues supporting this horrifying theory. However, concrete evidence to definitively prove this claim was never presented, and this possibility remained an element that further deepened the mystery.
Part 9. Enemy lines. ORA. Deeper game.
Another common speculation was that Miller's plane was shot down by German Luftwaffe fighter planes, which were still patrolling the English Channel at that time. Although the war was nearing its end, the English Channel and its surroundings could still occasionally witness hot conflicts. However, the absence of any information in German military records about such an incident occurring on that date significantly weakened this theory. Would the Germans have concealed such a victory? There were also theories that went even further, pushing the limits of imagination. According to these claims, Miller was not just a musician, but also a secret agent working for the Allies. Perhaps he was conducting some sort of negotiation with the Nazis for a secret peace treaty or an important prisoner exchange, and was eliminated during this covert mission. There were even hard-to-believe, unproven rumors whispered for years that he was kidnapped and taken to the Soviet Union, where he was held captive until the end of his life.
Part 10. Sensational Claims and Cover-Up Suspicions.
As the Glenn Miller mystery deepened, more sensational and sometimes incredible claims began to surround the event. Perhaps the most striking of these allegations was that Miller had actually reached Paris safely, but died there as a result of a fight he got into, an incident in a brothel, or some other dubious event. And this situation was skillfully covered up by the Allied command with a disappearance story to avoid tarnishing the reputation of the Army and Miller. This would have been a complete scandal. According to another noteworthy claim, Miller was battling a serious illness hidden from the public, such as cancer, and his health had deteriorated to the point where he could not make the journey to Paris. In this case, a scenario where he disappeared during a heroic mission might have been written both to preserve his legend and to somewhat alleviate the grief of his loved ones. Most of such theories lacked concrete evidence, but further enriched the mysterious and tragic fabric of the Miller legend.
Part 11. So many unanswered questions remain.
Years passed, technology advanced, but the fundamental questions about Glenn Miller's disappearance remain unanswered. Why was not even the smallest piece of wreckage from that small Norseman aircraft ever found? How could this be possible in a heavily trafficked area like the English Channel? Were the weather conditions that day truly so deadly, or did other factors overlooked or concealed in official reports come into play? Was there any unusual, unreported situation before or during the flight? Why was there not the slightest clue about what pilot John Morgan or Major Miller experienced in their final moments, or what happened to the plane? Some obvious inconsistencies, missing information, and unaddressed details in the official accident reports further fueled suspicions and provided material for conspiracy theorists. Every new claim of a witness, every rumor of an emerging new document seemed to make the mystery more complex, more inextricable, rather than solving it. The veil of secrets was not being lifted.
Part 12. The Grief of a Wife, a Family, and Millions.
In the shadow of all these complex theories, endless speculations, and unsolved questions lay a much deeper, much more human tragedy. Glenn Miller's beloved wife, Helen Berger Miller, had lost the love of her life, the unique father of her 2 young children. For her, life suddenly lost its meaning, and her future was plunged into an uncertain darkness. The orchestra members, on the other hand, had lost not only their genius conductor, but also an older brother, a friend, an inspiration. For them, too, the world would never be the same. And of course, his millions of fans. They were experiencing the profound sorrow of never again being able to hear the unique voice, those exuberant melodies that brought them joy, solace, and the will to live in those gloomy, hopeless days of war. Those notes were suddenly orphaned and bereft. That legendary swing rhythm had given way to a heart-wrenching, deep silence. A legend was gone, leaving behind only his songs and an unending longing. This was not just the loss of a musician, but of an era.
Part 13. The Legend Whose Music Lives, the Man Whose Mystery Endures.
Glenn Miller's mortal body may have been lost somewhere in the cold and dark depths of the English Channel on that ill-fated day. However, the immortal music he created continues to live on with its initial freshness, enthusiasm, and magic, even a full 80 years after his death. He continues to be one of stormed first names that come to mind when swing and big band music are mentioned, inspiring musicians for generations. His unique melodies give life to films, series, and advertisements. However, the thick, dense veil of fog over the enigmatic disappearance of the man behind this beloved music, Glenn Miller, can never be lifted. Perhaps some secrets are meant to remain hidden forever, unsolved. Perhaps some legends grow even larger, even more unforgettable, precisely because of these unsolved, incomprehensible mysteries. Glenn Miller is one of them. His story is both a triumph and a tragedy, both a celebration and a lament.
Part 14. Final word, an invitation. Are you also on the trail of the mystery?
Glenn Miller's still unelucidated, enigmatic disappearance continues to hold its place in our memories and history books as one of World War I's and world music history's greatest, most poignant, and most intriguing unsolved mysteries. What do you think really happened on that fateful day, over the English Channel, in that small plane? Which theory seems more convincing, more logical to you? Or perhaps you have a completely different, unheard of idea on this matter. Feel free to share your own theories, thoughts, and feelings about this mystery with us and other Chronicle Unlocked viewers in the comments section. If you love such unsolved mysteries, enigmatic events, and conspiracy theories that have remained in the dark corridors of history, on the verge of being forgotten, please don't forget to like our video and subscribe to our channel to accompany us on many more mysterious journeys. Until we unveil the next veil of secrecy together. Farewell.